Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another book reading with me, Richard Vobes, and we are on Lift Luck on Southern Roads by Tickner Edwards. This is part 6 of our reading on Thursday, the, 5th of November, I think it is, and it's approximately 4 o'clock, which is great, because that's the time we normally do the reading. And hello to you all. Hello to Linda Kane, who was going to buy me a nice book. She's decided to keep it, and it's a lovely library copy, first edition. God, I feel cheated. Cheated, I tell you. It is me with this scruffy old thing that Sean sent me. But I'm not really. Oh, golly, I nearly broke it. I must get some glue on here. This is falling apart. Anyway, how are we doing? We are about a third of the way through this interesting book. We've had some wonderful and remarkable books, aren't we so lucky? So there we go. Let's say a few hellos to everybody before we get going. Hello to Steve G, who was quick off the mark this afternoon. Edward Moulding, good afternoon to you. Philip and Mary, hello to you. John F, lovely to see you. He says, good afternoon from Slumberwell. I'm so pleased you found it. And Billabong O'Neill, hello. Lovely Julia, of course. Good afternoon. Linda Kane, hello, she says. Andrew Norris, what ho. Days of Yore, hello, Dave. What else we got? Lee Lawson, hello to you. I had just read an email from Lee Lawson who has cheated. Cheated? I don't know. What is it with you people? Cheated. But for very good reasons. But I'm not going to tell you what she said because then you'll all have cheated. Sean James says, I do think it is a strange title for a book, Lift Luck on Southern Roads. It's just a turn of phrase, isn't it? Lift luck, the luck of getting lifts, I suppose. But back then, perhaps, it wasn't such an unusual thing. Now you might say, you might have it hitchhiking on the southern roads. Nigel Sadler, hello to you. Turbo Streen, hello, yeah. Oh, Linda, the cheek. Yes, I know, bloody cheek. She said she'd ordered it for me, but she's going to keep it. A nice first edition, pleasantly surprised, and all of that. Lee Lawson says, I've been doing some research, and Tickner Edwards was ordained in 1925 at the age of 60 and was a curate at Lyminster before becoming the vicar of Burpham in 1927. So he was ordained after these adventures. So that's interesting. So he wasn't a vicar. Mark Donny McLeod says, blimey, it's the vicar. Oh, no, it's the Vobes. I am the vicar, all those welcome. I thought I'd just put a different jacket on than the jacket I wore last night. Linda Kane says, he still has a book I lent him that he said he'd return. Yes. I found that the other day, actually, Linda. I did find it. Then it got lost again on the pile. And Audrey Forbes is here. Welsh Wanderer Patrick, good afternoon. We're all here. Josh Hastings, hello. Nice to be caught up. Fantastic. My slipper's just fallen off my foot. I nearly said off my shoe, which would have been a lie. We are on chapter 8. And we will commence that reading forthwith. And we start with these words. For every step throughout the rest of that day. Oh, yes, he'd been... Now, let me just think. He had been to this place, hadn't he? Ilchester. He'd gone to the castle. We had a look for that. And he'd gone to the prison, or elements of the prison were there. And we've determined that since 1910, those prison remains have been flattened and a new estate of some description has been placed in there. So there's no sign of it left whatsoever, which is a shame. However, there is a record. The fact that he went there and wrote this tells us we know it's there. Michael White, hello to you. He says, perhaps Richard has bookworms, Linda. Yes, I think I probably do. Anyway, here we go. For every step throughout the rest of the day... yes, and he sort of made haste because he didn't like the prison, if I remember rightly. So he leaves Ilchester. For every day... I will actually get to read this properly. For every day throughout the rest of that... for every step, even, throughout the rest of that day, it took me into a finer, fairer country. It was a typical Sunday afternoon, calm and drowsy, temperate in everything, a season of placid half moods. The lane wound between broad green verges, dotted over with a wealth of flowers. In the hedgerows clustered berries of briar, hawthorn, bryony, which hung out their scarlet in the warm sun. Beyond these multitudes of sheep lay about in the pastures. Happy old horses looked over at me thoughtfully as I went by, and contented cows hobnobbed together in the shade of the trees. And all were more than half asleep. Even the signposts seemed to droop their arms languidly, as though they too considered themselves off duty, when none but a single solitary wayfarer was stirring in the whole lazy length and breadth of the land. I love that. I love the fact that just that concept of a sign it's like a cartoon, isn't it? It's a sort of cartoon image of a sign, Public Bridal Way this way, or, to Ilchester that way, going, there's nobody about. Oh, I just have a moment. You can imagine the scarecrows in the fields equally going, I just having a bit of a scratch. God, dear, a lot of ticks and fleas and goodness, lice everywhere. Oh, somebody there. You can just picture that sort of scene. All this goes on in the countryside when we don't observe it. I'm sure it's true. It's like what's his face? Ostranger's cat. What's his name? Ostrogen. Schreidenborough. Somebody's cat anyway. It's not Julia's cat. I know that. It's very, very lovely. I'll have a slip of this apple juice. And the sad thing is, like Walter, he writes of these travels so well, but sadly he didn't write very many books. I mean, I know he wrote a couple of books, but you just wish, actually, he hadn't been a vicar and that he'd written 10 books that we could savour with these descriptions. It's just beautifully written. That was a memorable, a profitable afternoon for all its uneventfulness. I went along by the hour together, pipe in mouth, hands thrust deep into pockets, eyes roving luxuriously from one point of beauty to the other. After a while, I took to plucking a nosegay from the abundance of late blossom around me, just to see how many different kinds I could get. With a little occasional hedge breaking, unlimited trespass, and one or two long rambling explorations down the side lanes, I got together a magnificent posy, an armful of rich colour, wherein there were no two flowers alike. Here is a list, a brave one for November. And here is a list of all the different flowers. Now, this would be interesting to see if in November in Somerset you could get any of these. Claramint, bellflower, buttercup, plume thistle, spear thistle, mallow, cranesbill, wild sage, harebell, hawkweed, sheepsbit, knapweed, white archangel, red archangel, blackberry, St. John's wort, nipplewort, silverweed, brassica, poppy, veronica, daisy, borage, dandelion, heather, chervil, marjoram, honeysuckle, ragwort, white campion, red campion, sow thistle, red clover, white clover, yarrow, hogweed, lilybind, yellow trefoil, meadowsweet, mayweed, dropwort, teasel, groundsel, strawberry, and hemp agrimony. How many of those still exist in any abundance? I would love to know. Linda Kane says, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a noise? If a man is strangled in a small box under a pond, do we know whether it's true? It's a gruesome thought, isn't it? Pavlov's dog. Oh, yes, there we are. Schroeder's cat, Pavlov's dog, Beethoven's ear. If Beethoven's ear was here, what would it hear? Who knows? Would it hear his fifth? 45 different kinds of wild flowers and all fine, grown specimens. Nothing seemed hardly nothing seems hardily in that rich, lush Somerset land. The hours went by and the light deepened as the sun drew down to the west. My shadow stretched out longer and longer before me, and then, just when I thought myself miles away from any inhabited quarter, a church clock, startlingly near and clear, struck. I counted its 4 slow beats as I breasted the top of the hill and found myself looking down on the very ideal of an English village, a mile or more sheer under my feet. There was a seat hard by, and a sleepy man lounging at full length upon it. I roused him to ask the name of the place. "Camel," he said, and returned at once to his land of dreams. Not Slumberwell, then. I thought I'd misheard him and asked again. This time he didn't trouble to open his eyes, but he moved his legs and gave me room to sit down if I willed. "Camel. Queen's camel, this is, isn't it? This isn't. This isn't. Did you never hear of the camels afore?" It was 4 o'clock and tea time. Somewhere down in that quietly populous valley there was a kettle, a copper one, I hoped, whose destiny it was to brew the cup for me. Excuse me. That COVID. I don't know, we're not supposed to have it during lockdown. This is a special COVID medicine that the lovely Julia has prepared for me in the event that I ever get ill. A lot of potassium cyanide in it, apparently, she said. Should sort me out, good and proper, were her parting words. I may have lied. Yeah, somewhere down there in that thing was a copper kettle, and he's going to do a cup for me. If ever I felt like hastening prospect into actuality, it was on that hot, glamorous, thirsty afternoon. And yet I lingered on that eagle eyrie of a hilltop for a good half an hour, immovable, fascinated at a bit of picture poetry spread out at my feet. The eye rested first on the tall, square church tower. Amazingly tall it looked, and indeed it proved. Then you noticed how compact the village was, a ruddy grey oval of tiled roofs and red chimney tops, from each of which extended a violet plume of smoke, the plumes all drifting one way on that gentle sunset breeze. Elsewhere, within and about it, great elm trees stood up in the amber light. You caught a glimpse here and there of the white curve of the street, a shining weather vane, the bright reflection of windows, water rippling and gleaming under an old stone bridge. But, most of all, the voice of the place held you. It stole up through the sun-tinctured air in one dim, mirthful flood of sound. Human voices, the voice of the river, the voice of the organ in the old church, the baying voice of hounds, 100 indistinguishable echoes of life joined to make up that quiet, imponderable symphony. But not a stroke or wheel rumble of the working day. It was the very voice of the Sabbath that came creeping, hovering up to you on that sun-crowned hill. I got to my feet at last and lowered myself gently, step by step, down the precipitous way, making out continual fresh beauties as I went. And by I drew into the charmed circle of the place, took rank among the strolling Sunday comradeships, landed finally on the flagstones of the church path, and began to look about me lazily for any sign of tea. The streets were fast emptying of their casual company. Everyone was going home on the same quest, disappearing into doors and garden gates singly, or in chattering twos and threes. After a while, I seemed to be left alone in the world, the only one of the throng compelled to stay out of doors. I wandered to and fro on the empty pavements. The church clock struck 5 and seemed to look down on me with rather contemptuous pity. At last, I was turning back, designing to knock up the folk in the ill, and I caught sight of a little whitewashed house standing deep amidst red and yellow chrysanthemums, with an old gentleman on a chair in the porch, placidly enjoying a pipe. As I ventured up his trim brick path between the gay rows of blossom, considering how best to deal with him, the old gentleman looked at me over his spectacles, first with grave inquiry, and then with a thoroughly hearty, welcoming smile. "I know as summer'n be along before sundown," he said, triumphantly, as he knocked out his pipe, and rose with some difficulty to his slippered feet. "'Tis seldom a Sunday goes without someone or other, I tell 'ee. Well, I'll talk it over with you, and welcome whoever you be. Come in, sir. Come right in." It was a perfectly astonishing reception. The speech I was so carefully preparing for him vanished from my mind. I could make nothing of the situation as yet, but plainly I was on the brink of one of those mild adventures which so often and so unexpectedly crop up throughout my journey. Setting therefore an instant guard on my tongue for fear of prematurely spoiling the matter, I followed the old gentleman in. Before we go in, he's been typing ferociously. Pavlov's dogs, yes, almost got it, says Andrew Norris. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to get, but let's just have a quick look at some of these things. Perhaps Richard has bookworms. Oh, yes, Schroeder. Hi, Lee. Seems to be he's had an eventful life, says Edward Moulding. Lee Lawson, if we have hemp, algramy, and red clover and dandelion. Oh, we do have hemp, agrimony. How is that? How you pronounce it? Agrimony? Is that right? Agrimony? Is it agrimony? Red clover and dandelion blooming in the garden. Oh, excellent. Some of that list are most definitely still around, says Turbo. Fantastic. It exists. Hurrah! What? Camel? Does camel exist? Hello, everyone, says Justine Jones. Sorry I'm late. I was talking to my mum on the phone. I hope your mum is all right. Mark Donny McLeod says, the point is there is a kettle with a destiny to make my brew. There is in my kitchen. It's not copper, though. Oh, it's a shame. You're not late. You're just in time. Bum tish. Excellent. St. Bernard's Church looks lovely. So where is Camel? Is Camel a place in... Let's have a look. Come on. Let's have a little gander, shall we? Is Camel really a place? Is it actually called Camel? I can't believe that. Camel, Somerset. Queen West Camel, Somerset. Wait a minute. Is it West Camel? Is it just Camel? I'm not seeing. I'm seeing Queen Camel. Camel, Somerset. Queen Camel, Wikipedia. History. Queen Camel. Queen Camel. Queen Camel is a village. Is it Queen Camel? St. Barnabas Church you've got there. Queen Camel. Is it... I'm just repeating myself now. Ad nauseum. Is a village in the civil parish on the River Cam, on the eighth of the Somerset district of England. It's about 7 miles from something. West Camel is a village. Oh, right, here we go. Queen Camel or West Camel? Which one is it? Queen Camel. No. Camel in Cornwall. So there is a West Camel as well. But you're saying it's Queen Camel. Okay, let's have a little look at Queen Camel. Queen Camel. Oh, it's near Sparkford. Oh, there's West Camel. Where was he? He was down in Ilchester, wasn't he? There. Oh, I see. Yes, he's coming up here. Queen Camel. And, of course, it must be on the brow of a hill. I need to have a look on Bing Maps now. What's that? That's an interesting field. Where's the church then? Oh, there's Barnabas's church. That's where they all went to. We'll have a quick look at the church. Nice looking church. But look at these beautiful houses. Look at these. Oh, look at these. Is this the kind of house he went into? All that thatch. Rather splendid, isn't it? On this little by road. There's another church there. Which one's that? That must be... Oh, that's definitely the parish church, isn't it? Gosh, look at that. It's very impressive. Or is this a church hall? Oh, that must be the church hall. Oh, yeah, there we go. County... Oh, it's a school. County Primary School. Fascinating. Lovely old village, though, isn't it? And there's a pub. He's not going to go to the Mid-May Arms. So we get a vague idea, roughly, of what the place looks like. Queen Camel in Somerset. It's Queen Camel. All right. Everyone's saying Queen Camel. It's Queen Camel, isn't it? It's Queen Camel. I mean, it just says camel, doesn't it? It just says camel. There's West Camel, and I didn't know. Anyway, Queen Camel it is. Thank you. I hope Nigel Sadler's making a note of all these places and drawing up the map. I shall be busy in the spring going down on this Devon to Somerset journey. Right, so he is venturing up there and he goes in, he follows the old gentleman in. It was a queer little parlour. There was the copper kettle, sure enough, in a frantic state of ebullition. In a frantic state of ebullition on the fire. An old cat dozed on a hassock beneath. The table was laid for tea, with the inevitable Somerset apple pie in the middle. But what most attracted my attention was the decoration on the walls. Instead of the usual framed lithographs and family portraits, there was a round dozen of extraordinary maps or diagrams, home-drawn and violently coloured, maps of the world principally, with the names of the countries curiously misspelled. My eye caught Great Britain, spelt Gratebritun, Britain, France, Franse, Hammerika, I don't know what that's supposed to be, Africa, Hinger, where's Hinger, or Hinger, at a street sweep. While outside the gaudy circles were freehand drawings of a most puzzling character. One represented a coach and four being hurled into space. Another showed a bucket of water tipping over. A third, a ship upside down out of an inverted sea. The largest and gaudiest of the maps was surrounded with drawings of human beings of all nationalities. At the top of the world, these folk were shown walking at their ease, but elsewhere they were in the wildest confusion, either clinging with hands and feet to hilltops or being precipitated in the whole, scrambling batches into space, the outer universe being symbolised by an infinity of yellow stars on a field of ultramarine. Then the old gentleman left me to examine these wonders in silence while he bustled about preparing tea. He seemed to take it so absolutely for granted that I was to join him in his meal that he never even went through the form of inviting me. "My gels is out visiting," he explained. "They won't be home for an hour or more, but we'll make our party well without 'em. Now, not a word of that there, not a word of that there," waving his hands at the walls, "till we've done and cleared." We got on famously together. He talked the talk at once on education, and I soon found that he took me for a schoolmaster. He was eloquent as to the bringings up, of which it was soon obvious he himself had but little. But by the time the meal was finished, he had got round from education in general to one particular branch of it, and then the whole mystery of the diagrams was suddenly revealed. "The scholars are all wrong about the world," he began, as soon as he'd cleared the table. "'Tis a round ball, they say. Round ball! Why, it's nothing but madness, as I'll soon prove it to thee." He reached down for one of the maps. "Now, look ye here. If the world as us lives on it, if the world was as we live on it, was a round ball, what would happen, Why, we'd all fall off, wouldn't we? Like these figures here. At top, there, us wouldn't come to no harm. Under, plain enough. But how about Australia, How about down under? Gosh, I'd have no patience with it." Obviously he hadn't heard of gravity, poor fellow. He had already worked himself into a red heat, but held on to his attitude of scientific calm bravely through it all. "And what about the sea?" he went on. "Water ain't like paint or plaster, as ye can stick on the ceiling, and there are tides. Water wants holding up by summit. This there bucket now, 'tis fill up and keeps full here in Camel, but if so be as the world was a round ball, and Australia was down there under your feet, and you were to take the bucket to Australia, what would happen, I tell you, the water would come pouring out double quick, I tell ye." He paused for a moment for breath, and then plunged again into his subject. "'Tis jest like that with the sea. We knows that ships sails on the sea when 'tis this side up'ard. But look at this picture. That shows what manner of a mess would be in with your round balls. Why, every drop of salt water and every ship would be gone to smithereens long before a God Mighty had time to make Adam, let alone Eve. 'Tis rank starking foolishness. 'Tis rank starking foolishness." I love that. "'Tis rank starking foolishness, that." He was feeling about his pockets absent-mindedly, then, catching sight of his pipe on the mantel-shelf, seized it and lit it. "But this here sea, says you, goes all round the world, and ships goes too, as everyone knows, 'cause Captain Cook, he sailed off down one way and came up t'other side. Likewise, says you, there be thousands that have seen buckets of water in Australia. Aye, granted. And now us comes to the truth of the whole darn matter." He reached down another of the world maps and laid it on the table. Then he produced a box full of what I took to be children's toys, miniature houses, ships, trees and the like, carved out of wood and painted, and which he arranged upon the huge circle of the map. "Now, here it be all. Now, here it all be, even," he said in a triumph. "There be the world flat, like a round plate, not round all the way round like a round ball. No bother, no nothing now. Ships, they bides in the sea, and the water in the bucket, and the folk on their feet as God intended. Thank'ee. No matter whether it is Queen's Camel or Knockermandu. Aye, 'tis all clear as clear to a thinking man." "But what," I ventured to ask, "happened to Captain Cook? If he sailed over the edge of a plate and up the other side instead of a round ball, he must have been in just as much danger of falling off in one case as in the other." The old gentleman uttered a shout of delight. "Why, don't you understand? And you a schoolmaster? Why, I went round the edge of the plate and kept right side up all the time. Thought we were going straight ahead, but weren't, see? He went a crooked unbeknownst. 'Tis the hell trickery in the hair that does it, I reckons. The electrickery. It's like blooming what's his name? Oh, I'm looking up there because the cat weasel. Electrickery. It's the electrickery in the hair that does it, I reckons. And he added many more details to his theory, as ingenious as the rest, the recital of which lasted him until we had reached the garden gate. There he gave me a final grip of the hand. "Teach the boys the truth of it," he said, earnestly. Never no harm comes of knowing the truth, but there's one thing that worries me terrible. There's these coal mines, see? They keeps digging and a-digging. Down they goes, deeper and deeper every year. Now, what will happen, think ye, when he gets through? Why, I be afraid that all the sea will run away, and there'll be nowt but dry land, and that'll be the end of the world for sure. Don't you mind what is written in the good book. There shall be no more sea. I left him then, standing with rapt, awe-struck face, his pipe raised dramatically over his head, and when I looked back from the end of the street, he was still at the gate, leaning over it now, and pondering deeply. That first Sunday and fourth day of my ramble finished with a 6-mile ride in a milk cart to Wincanton, under the light of the serene autumn moon. I arrived in the quaint, precipitous little town just as the churches were overflowing into the streets, and getting into talk with a friendly postman, I was soon lucky enough, by the aid now of a familiar formula, to land myself in comfortable private lodgings for the night. He's a flat earther, isn't he? He's a flat earther, that's what he be. Ye tell me he's not a flat earther, 'cause he is, see? We've got halfway through. Of course, I could be wrong. It's Queen's Camel in Cornwall. My mistake, Camelford. Oh, yes. If he mentioned Queen Camel the second time... Oh, did he mention it the second time? I've only just finished Peep Show Map, says Nigel Sadler. Get on with it. Get on with it. Lose your job. Joe Hastings says, sounds like the chaps smoked St. John's wort. Yes, they probably smoked quite a bit of weird stuff down there. You think that since then people might have learnt about gravity as such. It seems to have caused some quandary now for some. Well, as Josh Hastings says, he's a flat earther. Yes. And interesting, there are still those people 110 years later who still have not caught up. I couldn't type cat weasel quickly enough, says lovely Julia. Still, nothing has changed. YouTube adds them in droves. Yes, there we are. Cat weasel in camel. Aunt Tally, what are you doing there then? I wonders. A flat earther, a COVID denier, an anti-masker, and a global warming denier. Or whatever they call it. What do they call that? Global warming denier? Something like that, whatever. We're on chapter 9. That was fun, though, wasn't it? It was fun, though. Difficult reading the written accent in that way. So, here we go. It was Tuesday morning before I left Wincanton. My design had been to push on somewhere or other with every day. And I had, indeed, made the usual start eastward on Monday. But loitering about the narrow, steep alleys of the old place, enjoying its placidity, its grey medievalism, in the crisp, sparking sunlight, the minutes had drawn out imperceptibly to hours, and nightfall had found me still there, less inclined than ever to turn my back upon it. To me, the charm of Wincanton lay in its stately self-sufficiency and its manifest indifference to whatever strangers might happen to be within its gates. Thriving, well-to-do, even go ahead in the certain old-fashioned, unobtrusive style, yet it was plain enough that the 20th century had made little mark on it. The place still held staunchly onto old times, still cherished the national hatred of Guy Fawkes, still went about its business in the ancient, hearty country way, civil to strangers, yet caring little either for their presence or their bounty. I found myself free, in the truest sense, to wander about unobserved and unmolested, to get into brown studies at odd street corners, and generally to play the note-taking Sheil to my heart's content. What do you suppose is brown studies? I'm going to have to have a look at what Wincanton looks like now, just to get the measure of that place. If we can get into a search box. Where's the search box gone? Wincanton. St. Peter and St. Paul's Church is always good. There's the river. What is that? The River Cale. So, obviously, you've got a lot of this local limestone or sandstone, presumably, Euliptic limestone, sandstone, something like that, down there. Which way are we going? Hang on, what did it say on that side? Oh, look, there's a house. Oh, there's the church. There's the church. That looks very regal sort of church, doesn't it? A very 19th century, 18th century church. It's funny. Oh, Church Street. There we go. To the hospital, the sports centre. That's probably where he stayed. The Miller's Inn. What's round here then? Bit modern. Love the way that some of these churches are on their own little raised pathways, you know, up here, and the road has either sunk since or it's always been. They put this brick wall in, haven't they? Oops, I've gone into a modern estate. I didn't mean to do that. Get out. Go back. How do I get out? I have to go back this way. The Batch. Mill Street. Police station. Yeah, there's the river. So this must be the Bear Inn. It must be the main bit of... Oh, here we go. The Town Hall. That's very nice. It's a nice, interesting looking... Oh, narrow street. Another church down there. That looks very flinty, doesn't it? Or stony. And there's an inn. Hang on, let's just have a look at this place. No, it's not flint at all. I was going to say, oh, stop it. Sorry, I just want to see what pub this is. Casey mentions it. The Nog Inn. What a lovely name. I must go to the Nog Inn. Surely he stays at the Nog Inn. I know he stays at somebody else's house all the time, which is a shame because I can't really do that if I'm following in his footsteps. That looks very grand, doesn't it? Look at that colour. The Town Hall, the old... So that's the marketplace. Oh, round here as well, perhaps down here. Post office. Some sort of... whatever that is. Looks like a trig point, but it can't be. I wonder if that's part of the old market cross. And then you go up the hill. So presumably... Yeah, that's the centre, isn't it? Interesting. Interesting. We've got the measure of that. Thank you very much for bearing with me as I had a little look. Wasn't Wincanton the centre of the milk collection business? Used to see lots of their tankers. Oh, right. Love that shade of green, says the lovely Julia. a young man, a child, a young woman, child. Child? Is that how it's pronounced? Which rhymes with peel. Oh, cheel rhymes with peel. Thank you for that, Linda. Very much appreciate. The Mayor of Casterbridge in Dorset accent is better. 'Tis like being there. Wuthering Heights in Yorkshire accent is better too, if you get a flavour of the place by the way the folks talk. Thank you very much indeed. I have vague memories of camping at Wincanton as a child, says Turbo Stream. Just by coincidence, everything in the night sky spherical. Not seen any triangular planets lately, says Ben Reeve. Yes, isn't it amazing? Planet Toblerone. So anyway, he doesn't leave West. This book is falling to bits. I've got to go and get another one. What a shame. Especially when I'm going back there in the spring. Oh yes, we've done all that. It gets to the Cheel. Oh yes, that's. I found myself free in the truest sense to wander around unobserved, unmolested. To get into brown studies. Did we work out what brown studies was? Sorry, I missed that, if anyone said what it was. Brown studies. I'd like to know what that it means. At odd street corners, and generally to play the note-taking Cheel to my heart's content. It is outside the purpose of a itinerary so willfully unconventional as this to deal with the towns chanced upon in this journey, and I must leave Wincanton with this brief word. Oh, well, that's a shame. It's a shame he doesn't spend a bit more time and describes, some of the people and the places in it, because that would help our following a bit better, really. But I came upon one little gem which was well worth resetting. It was a signboard on a tiny house in one of the most secluded corners of the queer, zigzag old place, and I give it with all its imperfections on its head. Alfred Jordan, chimney sweep and fire defender, do live here. I can tend to your orders and charge not too dear. With brush and scraper and machine, I do my work both neat and clean. If your smoke jacks are the worse for wear, send to me and I will put them in repair. Patronised by royalty. The weather had changed while I tarried in Wincanton. The wind had gone round to the cold quarter, and the air bit with a surprising sharpness on my face as I climbed the eastern hill out of the town. Though the sunshine poured from a cloudless blue sky, every shadow was white with frost. In a single night, winter had driven her keen lance right into the heart of the smiling elderly season. That's a bit like at the moment, isn't it? Because we've had some very cold days, certainly cold nights, warm days, but some cold nights. We've had cloudless days. And this morning I was out filming and there was a mist everywhere. Just, Worthing woke up was all right, but as we got into not the Downs area, but the north of the Downs, in fact, there was a lot of mist everywhere. Was in this cold mist. As soon as I was clear of the town, I chose a sunny corner in the hedgerow, where there was a convenient block of stone to sit on, and got out my maps. I learned, with something like a start, that I had travelled right through the southern part of Somerset, and that the Wiltshire boundary was only 3 or 4 miles away. The rapid progress I had made perturbed me greatly. I saw that I had been suffering from the dread modern ailment, speed fever, without knowing it, and from that time forward I registered a vow and faithfully kept to it that I would accept a lift in nothing that went above walking pace. With this commendable resolve fresh upon me, I now became aware of a very low and distant rumbling, as of thunder in the air. There was a robin just over my head, singing so energetically that at first I thought I was mistaken in the sound. But gradually it gained in strength, and at last I guessed its meaning. It must be a traction engine lumbering up the hill from the town. Presently a sooty man turned the corner of the road, trudging along with a rolled-up red flag tucked away under his arm, and then the great, grinding, clanking monster hove into view, breathing forth smoke and sparks against the blue of the morning, and towing behind it a whole trainload of agricultural gear. There was a threshing machine like a mammoth Noah's Ark next to the engine. Behind this came the travelling way. Behind this came the travelling way, rearing its giant skeleton arm into the treetops and scraping off sackfuls of leaves as it went. Then following a big black box on wheels with windows and a chimney to it, which was a house and home to the men of the threshing gang. Finally came the water cart, astride of which sat 3 or 4 of the company, contentedly smoking their pipes in the cheery sunshine and cracking jokes as they went. I took stock of the engine driver as he approached, and liked the build of him. He had merry blue eyes, sat deep in a clever not reading terribly well today. He had merry blue eyes, set deep in a clever, soot-begrimed face. He smoked a briar pipe with a straight stem, which is always a sign of a companionable disposition. Yes, always anybody you see with a nice straight stem on his pipe is obviously a great companion to be with. Crooked pipe men were ordinarily reserved, or at least diffident, and inclined to regulate conduct by second thoughts, a fatal habit in chance camaraderie. But this one had no curved pipe hesitation about him. It was useless to shout in such a din. All I could do was to sign to him that I wanted to take passage in this thundering argosy. He flashed me a grin that showed a splendid double row of white teeth. The next moment I had gripped his outstretched coal-black hand and had been hauled up into the cab of the engine, landing into the arms of both driver and stoker, rather flustered and very much out of breath. Looking back now on that morning's ride, I'm inclined to rank it amongst the serenest, most placidly enjoyable of all my lift experiences. A sack was spread out on the coal bunker, and I was hoisted up onto it out of the way. Connected talk with my fellow travellers was impossible. We could do no more than exchange polite shouts at intervals, and as both driver and stoker were busy enough with the management of the engine and were forced to keep their backs turned to me nearly all the time, we soon gave up this ferocious exercise. Thenceforward, I sat on the coals, looking about me, studying the working of the engine, and quaking like a jelly from tip to toe. I have said that the experience was a serenely enjoyable one, and this is by no means so paradoxical as it looks. I was in a vortex of deafening sound. My eyes vibrated in their sockets. I sat, open-mouthed, because only in this way my teeth could be dissuaded from mutual destruction. But the steady, rhythmic throb of the machine had a strangely ordering and composing element about it. In a little while, the chaos resolved itself into its true parts. Once I had got the key to all its necessary uproar and vehemence, my mind settled down to a tranquil enjoyment of the situation. The watch in my pocket could go about its Lilliputian work of time measuring on silken tiptoe and at a whisper. But thunderstorms and faith and traction engines are built on vaster plan. If ever faith succeeds in moving the mountain, all the world will need to stop its ears. We kept the main road for about 3 miles, and then slowed down to execute a difficult manoeuvre. This was to turn into a lane almost at right angles to the previous course. I have watched pilots take great ocean-going steamers through intricate soundings and into narrow dock gates, but I never saw much anxious, self-reliant skill as our engineer displayed when he coaxed his long train round that corner. There were trees to dodge, a signpost to avoid, deep ditches flanking both roads to be kept out of. A few inches miscalculation in the angle of approach would have meant disaster, or at least a tedious dismemberment from the whole train, and perhaps a long delay, for with such a load, backing is well nigh impossible. But at first try, we struck the right curve to a hair's breadth. Slowly, the engine dragged its ponderous tail after it. A shower of leaves came eddying down as the long arm of the travelling way ripped through the branches overhead. The water cart got its wheel on the bank, lurched dangerously, but righted itself again. Slowly and surely the train straightened itself out, and with something very like a snort of mingled triumph and relief, the engine plunged forward once more on a free throttle and began pounding up the farther hill. I had read the name on the signpost as we passed. It was Pensel Wood, and Pensel Wood was as good as any other place for me, so long as it lay in the back country that I loved. Whither the threshing gang was bound, I had not troubled to inquire. Asking questions was a throat-spitting business, but our destination proved not far ahead. In half an hour or so we came abreast of a farmhouse standing in a little township of cornricks, and drew to a halt. The sudden silence and stillness that now enveloped me was almost terrifying. I felt as if the world itself had stopped dead in mid-space, and the next thing would be the last trump call, and the immediate dissolution of things. I climbed down from the cab of the engine like a man in a dream, but finding myself a prey to pins and needles in both feet, and a decided grogginess in all other members, I became assured of the normality of my surroundings, and stamped myself back into wingless, mundane wanderer again. The engine was standing close by, the engineer was standing close by, cleansing his hands on a bundle of cotton waste. "We're going in there," he said, "and as we shall be stopped there for 3 or 4 days, you'd hardly care to wait for us." I looked at him astounded. I beg your pardon, I've done the accent completely wrong. "We're going in here," he said, "and as we shall stop for 3 or 4 days, you will hardly care to wait for us." I looked at him astounded. The voice was the voice of a gentleman, and now as he threw open the throat of his greasy blue jean slops, he displayed a gold watch chain and a suit of clothes that would have passed muster on Brighton Parade. He guessed the reason for my blank look and laughed to himself. "Oh yes," he said, "you can't trust the ordinary mechanic to bring out the tackle to these out-of-the-way farms. It needs great care, as you've seen. My father is the largest engine owner for miles around, and there are 4 of his sons, all driving somewhere or other today. We are a pretty hard-working family." When he had removed as much of the grease from his hands as would come off, he gave me a wincing farewell grip, and turned busily to the work awaiting him. I watched the whole reverberating procession of juggernauts until it disappeared round the corner of the farm, and then took the road eastward, a solitary tramp again. That is a good place to stop. although we haven't actually finished that chapter. There's a couple of odd pages to. Well, there's a page and a bit, but let's. Oh well, I could go. It's only that one page. It's 2 and a bit pages. Let's get to the end of this chapter, if that's all right with everybody. There is an old belief, unborn by natural poets and prosers alike, that the year passes from one season to another by infinite degrees. Summer is but the completed spring, autumn only a gradual surrender, and winter, the negation of life, come through endless imperceptible slidings. But the fallacy of this idea must soon be evident to anyone living much out of doors throughout the year. The truth is that most years there is a very real and sharp demarcation between one season and the other. Nature chooses her day, sometimes her hour, when the change is brought about, and for each change she has her token. It is the apple bloom with which she signs away the youth of spring. You may go to bed, taking the last look of it, swaying beneath your window in the moonlight breeze, like snow caught and upheld in mid-air by invisible gambling fairies, and you may well link the earth in your dreams with an internal juvenility. But tomorrow, summer, new-born, as his wont, to the full, free stature, may be astride the world, and all the blossom blenched and falling. It is the same with summer itself. A year comes sometimes when the change is so deliberate that it can be followed almost leaf by leaf. When you can go abroad, the book of the old play in your hands, and check off one by one each dwindling word with the final. But most often summer dies like a short bird. The one moment a soaring miracle of colour and life, the next a dragged dead thing in the grass with the hectic of decay already upon it. I had left the far Devon coast, autumn winning all along the red cliff line, had caught up the summer again in the slow-going shelter of the inland valleys, and now, ever drawing away from the temperate land of the west, I found myself once more in the midst of a new country and a new season. As I went along the tree-locked lanes, red leaves spangled the path before me. A rain of them fell about my ears with every touch of the urging wind. Thousands more were getting ready above to let go of their year-long anchorage. Gold from the elms, red russet from the beeches, pale amber from the oaks, all lay squandered on the path ahead, or filled the sunbeams with flecks of glancing, twirling colour. I looked for nature's sign of the changed times, and soon found it. The ash, that ventures last of all the forest trees into timorous, furtive leaf, is always the first to abjure its lightly held summer convictions. It gives us no transitional hues. With it there is none of the picturesque obsequies, the dyeing in gold and purple of its deciduous brethren. But at the first sharp nip of frost, it casts its whole panoply of green sprays ingloriously to earth, and is already abject naked to the breeze, while yet oak and elm and beech hardly surrendered a single ingot of their glory. That's quite true, ash does. We saw some ash today in the forest, and they were stripped naked whilst everything else was still shedding its leaves. It's a fascinating, brilliant way of putting it. Wish I'd read it better, but brilliant way of putting it. There is a certain philosopher who teaches that not man alone, but all living creation possesses the germ of immortal soul. The midget, whose span of earthly life is but an hour's dance in the sunshine. The tortoise, who dozes a century. The dog we loved, and the horse that carries us. The flower in the craned wall, and the mighty oak, hale still under the weight of hundreds of years, all have their hereafter of more airy dancing or willing service or state of use and beauty. Well, if this be true, so what? If this be true, with what face will the ash draw high to the gate of the eternal garden? You may be sure of the hazel, for it hung out its green catkins bravely in the chill of February day, and the little coltsfoot, for it's coloured the banks along before any other flower dare show a petal, and the oak, for it held up against 1,000 winter storms. But what of the ash? That would not trust the sunshine with a single leaf until April was done, and that cried craven in the earliest passing chill of November. I left the brittle-minded, graceless thing standing, naked and unashamed, in the midst of its discarded finery, and trudged on over the ever-thickening carpet of the lane. That was a bit of a tongue-twisting mouthful to get myself round, but fascinating digest on the ash tree, how it does truly go take it's the last one to come out and the last one to sort of, and the quickest to go, if I remember. Check off, as in tick off. I think that was what that was. All the time, blah, 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 McClough. My dad had a pipe for many years, as did my granddad. I tried it, but I really didn't get on with it. I have been without that dirty habit for 2 years. Well done, Mark Donny McLeod. The sky is black, well, actually very dark blue. There's hardly a breeze, and the hail has stopped. After clearing the leaves yesterday from the front garden, I will have to do it again soon, says Mark Donny McLeod. Edward Moulding says, traction engine makes me think of LTC Rolt's Landscape with Machines. Ah, yes. That must be a book that I need to buy. John Buck tried a pipe, but my health made me quit before it was a habit. Never finished a pouch of tobacco. Good for you, John Buck. And Nigel Sadler says, the Peep Show is available as a download anywhere. It's quicker to read than have to listen to all the reading with annotating the map. Yes, of course. It's quicker than listening to me try and read it, of course. And Josh Hastings says, a lot of ashes nearby are getting the chop. It's tragic. Yes, of course, it's all that ash dieback. Talking of which, I need to go and order some more logs. Linda Kane says, no idea. I have a hard copy. Yeah, hard copy is easier, really. I knew you were following it, but I forgot if it was a hard copy. I haven't seen one online myself. In fact, I have a spare copy, says Linda Kane, and for $9.99, she'll sell it to you. Thank you very much for all of that. So I wasn't reading at my best today, but not too shabby. Nice to have a little look round the towns that we've been following. That's it. Tomorrow we will continue on, and let's see how far we are. We're just shy of halfway. We're just shy of halfway, so probably another 2 weeks of reading to get through, I should think. It's very enjoyable, and we need to start thinking about another book if we want to keep this going, which I do. But there we are. Anyway, have a good afternoon. Look after yourselves. Thanks very much for popping by, and I'll catch you later. Till then, bye-bye. Ta-ta.